Hello and welcome to episode 31 of the Adamola Bookman podcast. I'm your host, Al Bond, and I'm here with Johnny Coughlin. Hi, Johnny.
Hey Al, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, Johnny. And this week we are doing On the Edge by Martin Keown. Ooh. So, am I saying that name wrong, Johnny?
Well, yeah, you are. And I didn't know. I didn't know that.
How do you say it?
It's like gown, I guess, is how he explained it. Because I listened to the audiobook, so I could hear it. But yeah, he explained that it was a commentator. Was it John Watson said you should just say Keown, and he said okay, fine. But we don't. That's not a name I've ever come across. Like his father is from Northern Ireland, Fermanagh, which is largely Catholic, and he talked about his parents going to mass and stuff. So I guess he's from a Catholic background, but that's not a name I've come across in where I'm from.
Keown. Okay,
It's more
fine.
like Gowan, like Shane McGowan, but without the muck.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I'm not trying to be deliberately a dickhead there. I was trying to say it right, McGowan, but it's Keown. His name's Keown, Martin Keown.
Gowan,
All right.
I think maybe.
I don't want to
I'll
get
probably
into
say
it.
wrong as well.
Aren't Irish names funny? No, I'm not going to say that. No, no, they're not. I'm being told off for
Well,
mispronouncing the name Aoife once. What the fuck is that? Ivy? What? Don't fucking mock my names. Okay, so I'm going to go with Keown. Like, sorry, I don't want to be that guy, but
oh, I'm going for Keown.
all right,
Absolutely
Martin
going.
Keown. All right. So, what did you know about Martin Keown before you listened to the book?
I knew the Irish connection, and I didn't know the extent of it. And we can get back to that, obviously. I'm a United fan. I'm 41 years old, so he was around for a pretty significant, maybe the most significant rivalry of the Ferguson years, right?
No question, no question.
And he was a big part of that. And if you think of Martin Keown, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
Yeah, it's Van Nistelrooy, isn't it? It's him jumping up and down. Van Nistelrooy with his
Exactly.
simian features raging away like an angry monkey
So
next to a big chinned horse. Like
I have a
fucking
couple,
Planet of the Apes, didn't it? Like,
I have a couple of questions for you then. First, okay, you can give me a yes or no for the first question. Did you like Keown before you read this book?
no,
Do
no,
you
not
like him
really.
more or less now?
I like him a bit more. I
Yeah.
do. Do you? You do too?
Yeah, a little bit more. To
Okay,
my
good. I'm glad you
surprise.
felt that way. Good, because I did too. I think he's quite humble in a funny old way. Like the whole book seems to just diminish his career. He starts off with like, "Here's a crucial moment in my career," which is him just giving a half-time team talk in a game he wasn't playing in during the Invincibles season.
Mm,
Like, have you not got something better than that, Martin? It's like, oh yeah, I gave a really good team talk. It's like, what about the 400 Premier League games you played? Let's talk about. But that was the moment he opened the book with this weird
yeah.
team talk about being honest and you're not playing hard enough. Reading this book, it occurred to me, and I don't think I'm exaggerating, and have I said this to you before? I think I have read more about the Wenger revolution at Arsenal than any other topic in history. Genuine. I really think I've read more about that than anything ever,
Oh
about the
God,
Second
that's
World War,
depressing.
about honestly, like rock bands in the 60s. I mean, that would be the next one. I genuinely think this, Johnny. I don't think I'm being facetious. I think I've read more about the Wenger Revolution than any other single topic in all
That
of
could
my
be
life in
your
literature.
that could be your topic on Mastermind. Yeah. But before we get into the book, I have a game, or rather, I have a challenge for you, Al.
Ooh, a
So
challenge.
yeah, I hope I have the technical capacity to do this. It might take a few efforts. So Keown reads the book, and he made some interesting decisions, including doing the voices of people.
Oh, he did.
Yes, he did.
Oh, good for him.
So I I'm going to read a line to you and tell you in which personality you have to do the particular voice, and then I will play to you his attempt.
Oh,
Okay?
this is next level stuff. But you want me to do a funny accent. So I'll be the person with his head on the chopping block doing the silly accent whilst you tee me up to humiliate myself.
You come up with the games anytime you want. But this is what's at stake here. Well, nothing's at stake, just your pride. And let me just say, I think for each of these voices and accents, I have heard you do them. So it's
Well, Johnny, I mean, you're making me do it, so I won't shy away. I'm simply following orders. Yeah, I'm very happy to do these. All right, then, let's go. Lovely stuff.
okay. The first one is in the. I'm not sure how much detail to give you, but I'm going to say you have to do it in the voice of Martin Keown's father. Okay, and I'm going to give you the line. Do you want to write it down? It's long.
Sure, I'll write it down, but it's Northern Ireland. Oh, I can really flex. I can really flex here. Go on then, Johnny. Give me that line.
Not at all, man. I've come here and I've taken the benefits of this country. Go ahead and play for England.
Not at all, man. I've come here and taken the benefits of this country. Go ahead and play for England. Nailed it.
Okay, let's see now if you can hear. Do you want to hear?
I certainly do want to hear it. Keown doing an impression of his own dad. Good stuff.
Okay, here we go.
You said to my dad, Raymond, how did you allow him to play for England? My father always used to say, not at all, man. I've come here and I've taken the benefits of this country. Go on ahead and play for England.
Oh, no. All right, well, this is dad. You're allowed to do your dad, though, aren't you? Surely. Good for you, Martin.
Okay.
All right.
The next one is George Graham.
A canny Scot.
Yeah, exactly. He says, you may recall in the book, there's a story about Graham giving a team talk, and he used to come in and he used to throw his jacket on a clothes peg, but it would always fall on the ground. And his his coach, Gary, whoever it was, would go to pick it up. And the line, you can write it down if you want.
Yeah.
I just point out as well that in the last one, when I said, not at all, man, you said, not at all, lad. Anyway, whatever. The line is,
Yeah.
Gary, fucking leave it. I'm up there, sat in the director's box, and I'm fucking embarrassed.
Get it, fucking leave it. I'm sat up there in the director's box and I'm fucking embarrassed. Okay. I just went to Billy Connolly because I couldn't think of a Scottish accent.
That was very Billy Connolly. Okay, here's Martin Keown doing it.
Oh, goodness. This is a treat.
And George would shout, Gary, fucking leave it. I'm up there, sat in the director's box, and I'm fucking embarrassed.
I guess. I don't know. I can't picture what George Graham sounds like now. I can't. Maybe it sounds like that.
And then finally,
all right,
he did spend pretty much a whole episode talking in this accent. It's Arsene Wenger.
Yes.
He says, in that case, Martin, I'm holding you personally responsible.
Oh, this is the drinking episode. Well, in that case, Martin, I am holding you personally responsible.
Okay. And here is...
This is what I'm most excited about.
This is Martin Keown's impression of Arsene Wenger.
In that case, Martin, I hold you personally responsible.
It's Wenger himself. Oh, man. Oh, this is great. Oh, this is the first time I've actually appreciated you listening to the book. So that is brilliant. No one else has done this, I assume. It's a bold move and a strong move. I support it.
It's certainly a strong move. Yeah, well, that's his thing, isn't it? Okay, let's get into the book, will we?
Well, this is fairly prosaic after what's come before in recent weeks, isn't it? I mean, this is not Messi, this is not Ronaldo, and it's certainly not Socrates. This is a proper meat and potatoes football autobiography. Grinding his axe a little bit, settling some scores.
He likes money, doesn't he?
He does like money, but you have to understand that 1 year of a professional contract at the end of his career was worth 10 years of a contract at the start of his career.
I'd be happy enough if my career went like that right now, you know?
Yes, that would be lovely. There's
Yeah,
no real sign that's happening for me anytime soon.
that's it. But, you know, the first rule, at some point, I assume, we're going to be asked by various footballers and ghostwriters how to write these books. And the first piece of advice is just skip the childhood. Just don't bother.
Yeah, you could mention
you're-
that you love your mum and dad. That's absolutely fine. And if you've got a fucking golden story, you're allowed one golden story. No, the childhood stuff, bloody hell. There's a chapter called, what's it called? A love story. It's not about a love story. It's about his mother and dad dying.
Right. Yeah.
Jesus wept. The titles of a chapter, and we'll come back to this, Dicing with Death. It's a burst appendix. But like, but yeah, the love story, blimey. I mean, like, his mum was so glamorous. She looked like Jackie O. And then there's a picture at the back, and it's like, my glamorous mum. It's like, there is a woman who does not resemble Jackie Onassis in any way. Okay. But he had a hard time with his old man. His old man was a smoker. This jumped out to me, especially in the week that David Lynch died. He said one time at school he watched a video of a man on a stage who'd had his arms amputated. He'd had one arm amputated and both his legs amputated.
Oh, God, that was horrible.
And he was like, I lost my arms and my legs through smoking, but I kept this arm so I could continue to smoke. And that put Martin Keown off cigarettes, understandably.
Just on the thing about the childhood, so like if you're from somewhere like Oxford and you live fairly standard kind of, whatever.
Oxford. Honestly, Johnny, it's like he's from out of fucking Mongolia. Like, when I got to Arsenal, everyone was mocking me for being from Oxford. It's like the outsider. Oh, where's your combine harvester? He's from fucking Oxford.
He did that voice. He did
do the combine harvester. There is only one way you can say combine harvester if you're English, and it is in the manner of the Wurzels.
The only thing that's notable, I guess, about his childhood is the fact that he comes from this Irish background and he was growing up in England. But that in itself is by no means unusual, right? So yeah, just skip it. And did you notice just if he had never gone back to Arsenal, he would have really died a sad, broken man, right? Because so he goes to Arsenal as a youth and he leaves a couple of years later because of money, and he is just a miserable bastard until he goes back to Arsenal, right?
He turned away from God when he left Arsenal. Like. He gave up on God because he had to go to Aston Villa. He turned away from the church when he left Arsenal. I thought that was interesting. So devastated. Why do you forsake me, Lord? Why? Send me to Villa. Yeah. Yes, he really, really wanted to be at Arsenal. And man, those players from that era bought into the whole Arsenal thing, didn't they? There's a whole fucking chapter on fucking Highbury, like, of the marble fucking arches. Bloody hell, get over it, Arsenal players.
The stairs.
The stairs. At the end of the book, he goes to interview Arsene Wenger. I don't know why. But, like, he's like, they should have a big entrance at the Emirates. I agree with you, Martin. It's like, what a great line that is. Oh, they're losing something by not having a big door at the Emirates.
But that 1983 Arsenal group, which he says is as good as the class of 92, it was quite a group of players, wasn't it?
Yeah, notably Keown, Adams, Rocastle,
and
Merson. Merson.
Niall Quinn. Let's not forget Niall Quinn.
Yeah, and then to a lesser extent, Gus Caesar. Gus Caesar was on that role. He very much playing the what was the name of some of those 92 forgotten men, like Ben Thornley.
Ben Thornley. Have you ever heard Ben Thornley speak?
No.
He's a bit like Terry Christian from The Wedge. He's got that real nasal Manchester accent.
And that's one of my favourite impressions, that. Hey, people are saying I'm a misogynist. Well, ask me wife, ask me mother. Am I a misogynist? No. I can remember him defending himself passionately on the word, whilst like some topless women cavorted in the background. Like, I'm hardly a misogynist, am I? I'm not sexist. Ask me mother. He's a Christian now. Well, Terry Christian is a Christian now. He's a big church guy.
Really?
Nominative determinism.
Yeah, okay, so there we are. He goes to Arsenal as a young lad. He plays with Adams, and it's all going well. He gets into the team. He gets into the first team, but he's offered £50 a week, and he wanted 55 essentially.
Well, more than that, he had a rough time, according to him, because when he joined Arsenal, he was forced to stay with the youth coach. They always put the youth players in digs, and apparently there were no spare digs. So at this stage, he actually went to live with the youth coach and his wife, and he didn't like it. And so he moved out of that house, and that was it. He was like persona non grata with a youth coach. But again, this is an example of his single-mindedness, right? I guess he hated it, so he left.
It seems to me at various points that Keown just gets bullied, right?
It would seem that way. I did a bit of additional research. And how about this for a story, right? And I don't think this came up in the book, but he's talking when he's doing an interview in the Daily Mail, which I had to click on that link, I'm afraid. But he talks about after they won the 98 double, the players, Lee Dixon was on the pitch with a trophy and he waited for Keown to go back down the tunnel. And then he went and grabbed Steve Bold so they could get a classic picture of the Arsenal back four with the trophy. Ray Parlour saw this and, being mischievous, ran off down and go, guess what Lee Dixon's doing? He's getting a picture of the back four without you. And so Keown runs back, but by the time the photograph had been taken, but apparently that's like a legendary Arsenal photograph, the classic back four, and Lee Dixon had deliberately left Martin Keown out of it, which does sound a little bit like bullying, doesn't it? It does.
Well, if they were together for how long? Like, how long did they play together and he's doing that shit to them? What a fucking asshole.
Yeah, I think Lee Dixon is like an undercover prick. I get a lot of him on American TV.
That coach, like a grown man and his wife bullying a child, it's just pathetic, right? But he seemed to have problems, big problems at Everton with the kind of established players there. So he did seem to have a few problems wherever he went.
I mean, I wonder how much of that is real and how much of it is like a victim complex with him, and how that might have worked to his advantage in being a footballer. He was always looking for something better, and he was always deeply aware of any injustice. He's got a real teacher's pet of a personality, I think. Like,
by the way, one funny thing, he's doing all of these voices throughout the book, and then at one point there's a recording of Colo Torre, but he doesn't say that. I was like, wait a minute. is that his impression of Colo Torre? But I think it was just Colo Torre.
So there's two chapters. One's an interview with Tony Adams and one's an interview with Wenger. It's just a recording of that interview, is it, in the book? He's not doing Tony Adams' voice for the whole thing.
Unfortunately not. He's like he smuggled the dictaphone in his handbag as well. You know, he's wearing a camera in his hat like Homer. The sound quality is not perfect, you know.
There was one part, so he does an interview with Tony Adams, and this is this was the bit where I thought, yeah, you really were an outsider, because it's like, hang on, let me just find the quote. I felt for years like an outsider. I'd open my mouth and it was like, you're a country bumpkin, where's your combine harvester? They said it was banter, but it was just rude. I mean, come on, get over it. Combine harvester's not that bad. You got to be less of a baby about that. But it does it. So hang on, I'm trying to find this stupid quote. Yeah, Tony Adams is so condescending to him. It really, I'm like, he's just like a little child, just so desperate for approval. This is Martin Keown. Why do you think we've only seen each other a handful of times in 10 years? Is that just life? And this is Tony Adams. I think football is transient and people's lives go in many ways. I've got 6 kids and grandchildren, a house here, a house there, a business, 2 charities. You've got your stuff going on, which is nothing. How many players play for Arsenal? How many am I even having conversation with? Lee Dixon and David Seaman are the 2. So that's half of them. That's half of them you hang out with quite a lot. Like, yeah, I hang around with Lee Dixon and Dave Seaman a bit, and sometimes Steve Bold and Nigel Winterburn. But other than that, like, I don't see anyone. He don't like you, Martin. He doesn't like you. He just you're not fun. You're not a fun guy. He talked about, I wonder if he's got a sense of humour. Oh, he didn't seem to have it. I'll tell you who's not got a sense of humour, Martin. You. You haven't got a sense of humour.
He explains jokes. He's always explaining the most basic jokes.
Oh, some of the jokes are so lame. Just some of the anecdotes in it. Look,
There was a
oh,
fire
this
down
one.
at the Arsenal. They think it was arson. And then he
Yeah,
explains arson. Yeah, yeah. Right, we got it.
Philippe Senderos could speak multiple languages, but not the language of football. Hey, he can't speak language. Yeah, there's a lot of that. Him asking if people have a sense of humor. I'll tell you what, there else is a lot of people elbowing him in the face. Everyone's fucking elbowed. Hello, Billy Whitehurst. There's an elbow for you. Like Mark Viduka gives him a crack. Everybody fucking hates him. Elbow, elbow. And there's always brackets. It's like we won that game. Unfortunately, brackets. I was out for 3 months after having sustained a crack like eye socket. Always in these little brackets with terrible things that happened to him.
That story, that Billy Whitehurst. Had you heard of Billy Whitehurst before?
I had heard the name. He was before my time, right? I
So
think.
Billy Whitehurst used to go to a physio where like Keown's mother used to work in the physio, and Keown's mother used to say to Billy Whitehurst, "Oh, my son is a footballer as well," and Billy Whitehurst used to say, "Oh, that's very nice," or something like that. And then they played against each other. And this Billy Whitehurst says to Keown, "Your mother is driving me fucking crazy. I'm going to fuck you up." Like, what was the mother saying to Billy Whitehurst? And so the Billy Whitehurst does fuck him up. He cracks him open with his elbow. He gives him like whatever amount of stitches. It's it's vile behaviour.
I mean, it's double wounding, right? You get an elbow in the face and you get your mum dissed as well. Like, it's like, he's a nasty piece of work, old Billy Whitehurst. I mean, that's for now. I think he is just famously, he was a thug, Billy Whitehurst, right? And
He
he's
certainly
just
sounds, just don't say it into him in the physio anyway.
but he also sounds like he played in the 50s, so it's very confusing. It's like, oh, you're playing with Billy Whitehurst.
like,
I mean, that sounds like a footballer from a long time ago.
It is funny that with Keown, he was around forever, wasn't he?
Yeah, it made me feel old. I mean, yeah, he like made his Arsenal debut like in 1984.
And
And
he
yeah,
played for England in 2002. Was that when he ended his England career? That's a 30
yeah,
year
that's
career.
right.
Like.
Yeah, so he had a proper 20-year
Sorry,
career.
it's a 20-year career.
How long did he play for? A 50-year career.
In terms of the chronology of his life, at Villa, was there anything that interesting? Doug Ellis was a big fat cheapskate. That was kind of fun. Graham Taylor was a cocky fella, which is a surprise to me.
Yeah, I've heard that. Very, very self-confident, but he lost his confidence by the time he got to England, I think.
And when he went to Villa and they were relegated and then promoted, and he was under various managers and he was just having a terrible time. But he was playing very well and he was young, and so then there was a lot of clubs sniffing around for him, including Manchester United and Nottingham Forest. Did you enjoy the Brian Clough story?
Yes, I did. What was the Brian Clough story? I forgot. Sorry, what?
Well, Brian Clough just brought him in and really charmed him and gave him a vase, and he still has that vase. And then when he didn't sign for Forest, he does Clough's accent, by the way. I should have gotten you to do that. Say, tell him to give me back my fucking vase.
Oh man, tell him to give me back that vase.
Yeah,
That was good, wasn't it?
yeah. So he does that voice, and Fergie tried to sign him as well. So he signed for Everton in 1989. So if United had signed him, that means they probably never would have signed Pallister.
Oh yeah, yeah, man. There'd be no Bruce Pallister. Sliding doors, Johnny. Can I just say some quick stories about his dad, just very quickly? You could
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, his dad seems like quite a hard work character. There was one time he was sitting there watching Opportunity Knocks on the television, and a little 10-year-old girl singer came on and started singing. And Martin Keown's dad looked at Martin Keown and said, "You should be ashamed of yourself not having done anything like that."
You've made nothing of yourself.
Look at you, 8 years old, sitting on the couch, doing nothing, watching Opportunity Knocks. So that little girl's up there singing. Yeah, that sounds hard. And another one, sorry, one more, Tony, and this go back to a Tony Adams chapter. I was surprised when Tony started describing us as two great players. He put me in the same bracket as him. I previously didn't think he thought that, but it was very powerful to hear it. The conversation provided a little bit of closure. Weirdly, it's almost like I can sleep easier now. I've got Tony's approval. Fucking hell, mate. I can't sleep, Johnny, without your approval. I He was just being polite, Martin. You weren't anywhere near as good as Tony Adams. You weren't. Like, he was just being polite. He's not going to say, I was a better player than you, Martin. No question at all about that. But you were, yeah, weird. Anyway, so yeah, Everton, I mean, he did well, right? I mean, he was highly respected. Everybody wanted him. Yeah, he was
He got an
demanded
England
for.
team. He got an England team when he was at Everton, and he was bullied by Kevin Ratcliffe, the existing centre back. How many times in the book did he say, when I kind of made the decision that when I was an older player, I would help along younger players. Colo Torre, when Colo, he just keeps talking about how good he was to Colo Torre.
I mean, I think you've asked me. I think it's 3 times. I think he does say 3 times. Oh, I always made sure I wouldn't be one of these Kevin Ratcliffe characters. Oh, no, 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 no. I would help people. Benevolent, kind, Keown.
He did have a fight with Kevin Sheedy. I enjoyed that part.
Cultured left foot.
Yeah, he cultured left foot and cultured left hook.
He's very punchable, isn't he, Keown? I mean, for all that I slightly like him more than I used to, he has got a very punchable face.
I'd say if he spent about 2 minutes in his company, he would for the punch him. Yeah, so he got essentially Kevin Sheedy. Like Keown brought his brother out, which was a bit of a mistake with the players, and Keown went to the Jackson. This kind of clique of existing older Everton players were just saying how the new players were so shit, and he was saying things about Keown, and he came out and the two boys were about to fight, so Keown fought him instead, which was admirable.
Yeah, that is nice. Yeah, he's a good family guy, right? I mean, Keown, I mean, it appears he has a lovely family. He's very fond of his brothers and sisters.
Great poets in that family. Like that son of his wrote a great poem.
His poem. And he said he read it aloud when he was 11 years old. I haven't got it, but he does use the word daddy. Don't say daddy when you're 11. You say daddy until you're about 7, right? But you can't say daddy after that. Certainly not if you're reading a poem. Oh, I was cringing for that kid so hard. Like,
at the end of the book, he reads the poem again, and he says, unfortunately, we couldn't find the recording of him doing it when he was 11, so here he is in his 30s reading it again.
Does he do that?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, this is the first time. I wish I'd had the audiobook.
Yeah, the other book there was certain wrinkles that were enjoyable for sure.
So hang on, he got his son. He's so much like, I'm doing my autobiography, and I want you to read it. I don't want to do that, Dad. No, come on. Wow, a poem for you, Dad.
Yeah. Anyway, whatever. He goes. Everton. Howard Kendall was an absolute unaged alcoholic as well, by the way. Just coming up with reasons to call around to teetotaler Martin so he could drink bottles of champagne.
But then he'd always call him out, wouldn't he? He says that. It's like, I may have mentioned to someone I thought he wasn't in a position to give a team talk. He's always doing that. Like, he's a real teacher's pet. Like, I don't know. Don't say that it was me that said it, but I think he's drunk. But apparently everyone was just drunk at football clubs in the 80s all the time, right? About half the staff at all times were hungover or drunk.
Kendall wasn't able to drive his own car back from away trips wherever they got dropped. So Keown used to drive him home because Kendall would just be lit.
Yeah. So awkward. Hey, boss. All right. Just yabbering away drunk in the car. Maybe I'm losing a bit of respect for you, boss. I don't know.
Yeah, he only signed him because he needed a designated driver, like, you know.
And old Martin, that is his middle name, isn't it? Like Martin, designated driver Keown. I've never had a cocktail.
Anyway, so of course then he returns to Arsenal, the prodigal son. And
he returns to God as well, Johnny. He does when he goes back to Arsenal. He returns to God as well. He's had his time in the wilderness of Everton and Aston Villa. He's been tempted by the devil, Fergie, and now he's come back to his home, the gleaming marble palace that is Highbury.
With its big door.
Lovely big door, which really helped the team.
Do you remember the film Shirley Valentine?
I certainly do.
Do you remember the scene where Shirley Valentine meets Joanna Lumley's character later when they're adults?
No, all right, talk me through it.
So Joanna Lumley, so Shirley Valentine has left her husband in Liverpool and gone off to have an affair in Italy or Greece or wherever it is. And then at some point she meets Joanna Lumley, who is a glamorous older woman that she went to school with. And Shirley Valentine used to just kind of be totally mesmerised by this girl when they were in school. And Shirley Valentine is saying to her, well, you must be having such an amazing life and so on. And she has it in her head that Joanna Lumley has become an air hostess. But it turns out Joanna Lumley's character had become
I don't know.
a high-end prostitute.
Oh,
Yes. So it's a bit of a curveball there. But anyway, Martin Keown talking to Tony Adams kind of brought that to my mind, because Keown is just essentially saying just how much he, I guess, envied Adams and his personality and his hold over people. And Adams said, well, my whole life was falling to pieces, you know. That was interesting enough, I thought.
you and I have spoken about this. There's a certain, I never want to talk about alpha males or beta males because I don't believe in that. But there are certain men that I am intimidated by. And I would imagine that the Arsenal dressing room of the mid-'80s would have been filled with men like that I would have really struggled to impose myself on.
Right.
And I can understand him there. I mean, you're a young kid, you're not really a boozer, and you've got all these really aggressive, mean, nasty blokes. It does sound pretty harsh, doesn't it, being a footballer back then?
Yeah, and Adams was, as a 17-year-old, able to kind of mix with these these tough sons of bitches, you know.
But how did he do it? By being a massive boozer, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's
that's
it.
what that's what he says to Keown. I envied your ability to not do that, you know. So that's
Well, there's another story I read in this Daily Mail interview with him, and he said when he was at Arsenal, they had like a card school at the back, and he'd go back, and there was a young player, and he was playing like £1 hands, and that's fine. He's like, but by the time we get there, it's not going to be £1 hands. It's going to be like £300 a hand, and you can't afford that. And he said, this is money well spent. I'm getting in with these boys. I'm prepared to pay this. And Keown says, I was not prepared to do that. I was not prepared to give people my money in order to be accepted. I think he's very single-minded, and it is sort of admirable in a kind of teachersy pet way. He stayed true to himself. I think he always stayed true to himself at all times, and he lived with his regrets, and he owns his regrets.
deep regrets.
Deep regrets, like.
I just think he strikes me as a fella, exactly as you said, who must have just been such easy pickings in an environment like that, you know. If it was just that he wasn't very clever, okay, fair enough, but there's no shortage of dummies in football, is there?
No, he's keen, right? And that's the thing that people mock.
Right.
Like he's the kid, like, I'll go first. He's the first, he'll be at the front of a run, like, look, I'm coming first. And people mock that, and I get that. But in fact, he's the perfect mindset for a footballer. He wanted to be the best. And he was prepared to work on his game as well. Again, I admire him.
Do you think, just kind of on a kind of fundamental level, that period when he was playing for when Arsenal originally, and for Villa and Everton, and the people in football and all of the boozing and the way football was, is it just more interesting than what came later?
Oh, I mean, you don't want to be that guy. Wasn't it better in the old days? But there were more characters, weren't there? There definitely were.
It was just a looser world, wasn't it? A much looser world.
Yeah, and I was struck, like, Man U played Arsenal a couple of weeks ago, and I think they mentioned this on something else, but, both those teams aren't as good as they used to be. I mean, I know, obviously, those two were the two best teams, but, football's moved on 25 years. But there's no question the late 90s team would absolutely destroy the current United. And I think the late 90s Arsenal team would beat the current Arsenal team.
Yeah,
they are better players.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is weird, isn't it? Because we always say how high quality the Premier League is now, but Arsenal are the second best team in the land, and I don't think they're a patch on the team that was the second best team in the land 25 years ago.
But
I mean, how many? I know you can't compare now and then, but how many of the current Arsenal players would get in that Arsenal side from the late 90s? How many? None? Saka?
Odegaard?
Saka, maybe Saliba, but Saliba would be taking Keown's place,
Yeah.
and Saka would be taking what, Perez or Freddie Ljungberg, but they were
Lumberg.
both great players. Great players.
Saka's pretty damn good though. But you're right. You're right.
Yeah,
But
so it is funny, isn't it?
but to the point though, like when when George Graham is getting like thrown out for bungs, Howard Kendall is staggering around the place playing drunk. You've got these kind of characters. He's fighting Kevin Sheedy. Football became a lot more of a kind of controlled and clinical environment, didn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm struck by Wenger was like appalled. Players used to injure themselves just training because they were training on really shitty pitches, and now you just don't get that. Everything's a bowling green, isn't it? Everywhere you play in the Premier League, the pitches are perfect. The training facilities are like 10 times better than they used to be. But you do lose a bit of character. There's no question about it. Although, obviously, Johnny, we are living through a golden age of football right now, the most golden, sparkling age of football. Come on, you Red 7-0.
I tell you where maybe football from the 90s had a lot of room to improve was the music choices. Fucking hell, the music choices. Tina Turner, Simply the Best, and Dreams by
Gabrielle.
By Gabrielle.
Let's get worked out. You're missing the point. I just, yeah, that. And like, Keown was like saying to Wenger at the end, like, what a brilliant choice that was, playing Tina Turner, Simply the Best. How could that be? How could you have a lazier choice than that? Like, it's so lazy.
Well, Dreams by Gabrielle. And did you hear, like, sorry, did you spot later when he says, when he himself and Bergkamp, was it, were trying to push for contract extensions at the same time, so they went around singing, both of them went around singing What's Another Year by Johnny Logan, and he says every time he hears that song he thinks of Dennis Bergkamp. How often do you think Martin Keown hears What's Another Year by Johnny Logan? Like, I guess he must watch the Eurovision every year, because that is the only fucking time you're going to hear that song.
I mean, I literally don't know what that song is. Like, I think I've never heard it. But so he's constantly never reminded of that time. There's a picture at the back with him and Bergkamp and who's the other Dutch player? He's in Overmars, and he's like, the Anglo-Dutch Comedy Club. It's like, that is the lamest caption for a picture I have ever seen in my life. Famous jokers, Mark Overmars and Dennis Bergkamp. Oh, ho ho ho! Are you ready to laugh? It's Dennis Bergkamp. The Anglo-Dutch Comedy Club. I mean, where is that a concept? Like, hey, you're in for a great night tonight. It's an Anglo-Dutch comedy club. Dennis Bergkamp and Martin Keown are headlining. I'll give it a miss.
Just on the Johnny Logan thing, if you think you can get away from that, Johnny Logan won the Eurovision twice for Ireland. Twice, Al.
It's fixed, isn't it? Bloody Eurovision. Always picking on England.
I think he's the only person to have won it twice.
Ah, well, hats off to old Johnny Logan. Yeah, just talking of music choices. When I was a kid, I was made to play rugby. And even like 15 or 16, I used to listen to Rage Against the Machine, Killing in the Name of. That's what I'd play in my room to get worked up. And even as a 16-year-old, I think I was self-aware enough to know that Rage Against the Machine would probably be sitting there in LA thinking, this is not what we made this music for like some middle-class posh boy to get worked up to play Oundle at rugby. Like, this is not what it's for. I think Gabrielle was there going, dreams can come true. Maybe one day Arsenal will listen to this to get pumped up to play United. I mean, how did you pick that song? Dreams can come true.
But didn't Rage Against the Machine study in like Harvard or somewhere like that? Something fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, the guitarist did. Johnny, what's his face?
So yeah, maybe they were marketing themselves towards you for world domination. They knew where the money was in the posh English boys market.
Well, it did work. I used to get really worked up. So here's another chapter. So this is the one. Rude boy. So lame. Rude
well,
boy.
I think that was written by the Anglo-Dutch Comedy Club.
Comedy Club.
Must have
Ruud is the name of Ruud Van Nistelrooy. It also means to be unpolite in English. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is where I think he diminishes himself. At the start of the book, he's like, here's one of my golden memories, a speech I gave at half time in a game I didn't play in. And then it's like, he's fully aware this is what he's most famous for, is that picture of him standing there raging at Van Nistelrooy. Did you watch this game at the time, Johnny? Do you remember watching this game?
Do I remember? I assume I watched it, but do I remember watching it? I don't remember watching it, no, but I would have done.
I think of all the games, that could have been 2 years ago. That feels so fresh to me. Like just seeing that, it really makes me feel old. That did, like, that was over 20 years ago. Bloody hell, that really feels fresh.
Yeah, but does he say anything new? Van Nistelrooy
Absolutely.
Step on people's feet to kind of piss them off, but nothing else.
Yeah, and he's like, other people might not agree with me, but I consider that quite unpleasant. It's like, it's unpleasant to stamp on your feet. Yeah,
you think unsportsmanlike.
Yeah, other people might not agree. In my opinion, this is what he says. In my opinion, it was quite an unsporting thing to do. In your opinion, yeah, say it. And then eventually I had enough, and I swung my arm, and he talks about how he like elbowed him in the face, and then he went to the ref. You should probably give me a card for that, but don't give me a red card because the video people will get involved. But as long as you give me a yellow card, I'm all right. That's weird, isn't it? Ref, yeah, you didn't see it, but I did elbow him in the face, so yellow for me, right?
I softly elbowed him in the face.
Oh, actually, the funniest line in the whole of the thing is that he was called the Rush, right? Because he was so good at man marking, and he says he used to man mark Fergie at half time. I thought that was pure gold. He used to man mark Fergie to stop him getting at the referees and stuff. That was a great line, and you can see how you'd need to do that. He said like one time he saw he came off the park and he saw Fergie with the ref, and he's like, I will never ever let that happen again. So he would just walk along with Fergie and stop him from talking to the refs at half time.
Yeah, like good. On the teacher's pet thing, you can imagine if you told Keown to do something, he would do it to the letter, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if Wenger told him to do it, my goodness, yes.
You know what you're lacking, of course, in the written version of this audiobook is hearing his tone when he's speaking to Wenger.
Oh, there's absolutely loads, isn't there? Yeah, and he must have. I missed out so much here.
I think I've made this comparison before, but it's like Adam Buxton speaking to Paul McCartney or something like that, absolutely groveling on the floor, talking to Wenger. He keeps calling him boss as well. Oh, come on. No, you're quite right. That's bad. Just on the Keown thing, on how he's perceived by other players, by people in England, I think it would have been all so different had Jack Charlton had his way. Wasn't that quite remarkable, that little story? So Keown was very, he got into the England youth setup, and he said back in the day, once you get into the youth setup, that was essentially it. The team that you play underage for is you play for them as you get older. But he was playing for the, whatever it was, under 21s or whatever, I think it was 1987, beside Des Walker. And he's doing great, but then he gets injured and he's kind of out of that setup. And then he's not back, he doesn't make his England senior debut until 1992 against France. But he says that, without telling him, Jack Charlton wrote to FIFA ahead of the World Cup in 1990 and said, can he play for Ireland? And FIFA replied saying no. And Keown says he would have definitely played for Ireland. And had FIFA said yes. So he would have been in the World Cup 1990 squad, he would have been in the World Cup 1994 squad, and he would have played in the World Cup for us in 2002. I suspect he might have been our most capped player ever, and he just would have been loved. He would have been loved.
He'd be an absolute legend. And, without being... He wouldn't have really been a net loss to England. I mean, you just put another fucker in there. Like, God, we had centre-backs at the time. We had centre-backs coming out of our ears. We had so many.
We would have taken him. We would have happily taken him and Paul McGrath.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, Colin Cooper could have played more for England and everything would have been great. Lovely slide. Yeah, that is a shame. Yeah, he must have some regrets there because he would be a legend. He would and he would have fitted into that team as well, wouldn't he? You could see him there.
He wouldn't have fitted into the culture though.
No, you're probably quite right there.
The England part, his chapter in England, which is just at the end, it was interesting enough, wasn't it?
Well, that's he England had some pretty good moments there, but he tended to be along in the times when they weren't playing well. Like, he got in the team when England were bad. But it was interesting. I mean, the whole Keegan thing. Again, Keegan is an absolute legend, isn't he? Lovely, lovely lad. They said like he used to do like record a horse race, and then he'd sit on the laundry trolley, and like they'd push him along like he was one of the riders. It's so cute. Lovely, Kevin.
It's a manager as well. It's not the kind of thing Fergie would have done.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Fergie would have been sneering away, like, and that's why you didn't win the title, you fucking idiot.
Had you heard that stuff before about the players drinking wine in teapots before under huddle? That sounds familiar.
Yeah, that does. Yeah, you can just see that would appeal to Keown, like a little naughtiness, but only wine and tea. And then we said John Gorman bowled in like, "This is the last teapot of wine you're having tonight, lads."
Do you think Keown is the person that tipped off John Gorman? I think probably.
I would say so. Yeah, certainly, most likely. It's his MO, isn't it?
Mr. Gorman.
I think if you have a look inside the teapot, you're going to be unpleasantly surprised. You think they're enjoying a nice, refreshing cup of tea? They're not. They're not, Mr. Gorman. I think Mr. Hoddle should know.
And did you like that line that he had about Beckham? He said Beckham was really nice. He said all the United players were very insular, and the Nevilles, and Scholes wouldn't talk to anyone. But Beckham was quite nice, and he'd come in and visit in your room. He'd visit you in your room, and he would socialise with everyone. Beckham should really get more credit. I was thinking, how could Beckham possibly get more credit? This man is one of the most beloved characters in England. Like,
he's a bit of a forgotten fella, isn't he, old Beck's? Like, yeah. What's he up to now? I don't know. Yeah, they did sound pretty awful, the whole United team, eh? They'd come down to eat 15 minutes early, and so by the time you sat down, maybe just Scholesy and Neville and Nicky Butt all sitting there like all insular. Phil. Yeah. Phil. Phil, I don't want to hang around with you. Well, that's fine, Phil. I don't want to hang around with you either. You're good.
Yeah, he said that the two Nevilles were playing table tennis, and Gary was winning 2017, and then everybody kind of started cheering on Phil. And Phil came back and beat Gary, and Gary threw his bat and stormed out of the room. That
would be you, Johnny. That would be you winning 2017. And everyone would come and pick on you, and you would be near to tears, throwing things. I could see that right now. Yeah, hey, look, Johnny's winning. He's about to win. No, you're not, Johnny. Don't think about it too hard. Fucking leave me alone, sir. Yeah. Johnny, Phil, Neville, Coughlin. No, Johnny, Gary Neville, Coughlin.
Gary Neville, yeah.
Rather be Gary than Phil. Yeah.
I didn't remember that Keown went to Leicester and Reading.
No, well, that's funny because I didn't remember either, but I did think Leicester and Reading. So yeah, I remember him playing for. I don't know how I remember that, but he was part of the team that got promoted.
He has this story which was quite good about one of the coaches at Reading called Rory Downs, and because he was a kind of an established, pro towards the end of his career. He says that a few coaches at Leicester and at Reading were kind of worried that he was trying to take their jobs, become a coach or whatever. And there was one particular coach, this guy Rory Downs, who he caught crawling on his hands and knees to eavesdrop on one of Keown's conversations to see if he was, bitching about him. I guess that was pretty nice. That was my favourite story in the book.
Well, you should stop slagging people off behind their backs, like. Crawling on your head, it's funny, isn't it? Like, God bless him. Was that on a bus? Like, what's that? What are you doing down there, lad? Nothing. I think I dropped a button.
It'd be hard enough to take your coach serious after that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
When I was about 16, I was at the swimming pool. And I was getting changed after, and the principal of my school came over to talk to me, absolutely naked. Oh, Jesus Christ! I could never look at him again after that. It was an awful episode.
I don't know. I think that is like something about our parents' generations. That was a thing. Like it was like, oh, you're caught fucking naked. Like they all jumped in the fucking bath together. I mean, thank God that those days are gone. Jumping in a bath with like 12 other naked blokes. No thanks. Just so gross. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, but that's it. Yeah, that was a thing, eh? Like I can remember, you know, in like gym changing rooms and men of a certain age just standing there drying their balls. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Let yourself away. Just wrap a towel. You can dry your balls and conceal yourself at the same time. Wrap it round and then just come on. It is right. We would never dream of it. People our age would never dream of that. But like our parents' generation, like, oh, I'm at the gym now. Look at me. It's like you're fat and unattractive with a small penis. Why are you showing me?
Standing with your hands in your hips. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's the dry balls is when you put one foot up on a bench as well. So like they're really dangling down like. You know, there's a real Partridge movie. You put your foot up, so like, oh, so there you go. So, oh God, you're doing a power stance with your balls out. Please stop. Anyway, that does sound pretty horrendous for you, Johnny. TGI, just come on, think about it. Think about it. How is a kid gonna react to that? Like, oh, mama.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't have much more on Keown. Do you?
Well, there's not a lot on Keown, eh? I mean, that's the thing. The book, I was happy to read it. I learned a few things. I slightly like Keown more, so that's mission accomplished, right? Oh, by the way, Martin Keown, on the edge. On the edge of what?
Yeah, it's not
on the edge of getting fucking elbowed in the face. Like.
I enjoyed this book more than I expected, actually. I didn't think it was an amazing book written, but it was fine. It was a fine book.
Well, it was. It told his story clearly and concisely, right? I really do feel I know Martin Keown now. I cannot for the life of me understand why the BBC decided that he should be a pundit.
Well, it's elbows in the face, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, how many elbows out of face? Well, this is a straight down the line, 3 out of 5 book for me.
Exactly, fine.
Yeah, it's a nice book if you're an Arsenal fan, I suppose. I mean, you're not going to learn anything new.
Arsenal players are particularly booky, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are. I think a lot of it is to do with, like, they're called the media team, aren't they? Everyone's an Arsenal fan in the media. Yeah, there is nothing new there, but more than any other book that I read, and obviously you listened to it, but I could hear his voice for every single word. It sounded like Martin Keown. I don't know why that is, but I could hear his voice. And I don't know why I know Martin Keown's voice that well, because he was never a pundit when I lived back home, but apparently I do know it, and I could hear him all the time.
In my case, as I got towards the end of the book and I was getting ever closer to my deadline, it sounded less and less like Martin Keown as I had to speed up the tempo. Compared to Wenger's book, he did give more detail. There was some reasonably entertaining stories, and even when he talked about some of the nutrition stuff, which we've heard 100 times before, he did actually explain some of that,
Yeah.
I didn't. Yeah, I think this was not a terrible book.
It is what he was as a player. Absolutely no nonsense, no flair, no nothing. Just an efficient. Could have been shorter.
Yeah,
it wasn't that long. But yeah, fine. Yeah, well, that's it. His career should have been shorter. Yeah, just cut off for Leicester and Reading. Get to keep your Invincibles. Yeah. All right. So fine. If you really like Martin Keown, which no one in the world does, then read this book.
Yeah.
I mean, like, even if you're an Arsenal fan, like, who's your favourite Arsenal player of all time? For me, Martin Keown. Definitely not, like. Even Martin Keown lies. He says once, he goes to Thierry Henry, I'll tell my grandchildren I played with you. Give it a rest. All right.
But he won Arsenal Player of the Year once. And he captained England. These things did take me by surprise.
Oh, the captaining England, though, that was because no one else was available, and it was against Finland, right? And nah.
In parts, it read a bit like a bad speech at a wedding, He was always kind of like giving people their due in a kind of a weird and kind of boring kind of, bad at a wedding kind of way,
Yeah, boring is a really decent word for Keown, and I mean that in a not unpleasant way. He's just a dull, efficient, decent family man. So the next episode, we're going to be doing the legendary Bella Gutman. I'm going to try really hard not to call Bella Lugosi because that's what I've been doing in my head all the time. Bella Gutman. I don't even know where he's from, Johnny. So I just know there's The Curse of Bella Gutman, and he's not the actor that played Frankenstein and Dracula. So this is going to be great. This is a real step into the unknown. Yeah, so that's something to look forward to for 2 weeks. And in response to demand, we are going to produce some extra content. So next week, we're going to be bringing out the Ademola Bookman Injury Time Fantasy Draft, where we will be picking players to play in a fantasy draft team. This one, the first one, in honor of Johnny, we're going to be picking a five-a-side team of Irish English Premier League players.
Thank you very much, Al. I look forward to that. And thank you to Martin Keown and the various voices and guises of Martin Keown.
Thank you very much. And we'll see you next week for Ademola Bookman Injury Time.